Straight from that to business now on the programme. Charles Pellegrin is joining us. He's going to take us back to that debate here in France. It took place on Tuesday night here ahead of the legislative elections. All three major parties presenting their plans for the economy, Charles?
The far-right National Rally, represented by its president, Jordan Bardella, the ruling Together coalition, represented by Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, and the left and far-left coalition of the New Popular Front and its rep, Emmanuel. They engaged in a sometimes fiery discussion, and among the major topics discussed were purchasing power, fiscal discipline, and pensions. Let's zero in on the party that's leading in the polls right now, the National Rally, and their promise to boost people's spending power is to reduce the sales tax to 5.5% on energy and fuel, and to scrap income tax for those under 30. The party is also looking to tweak Macron's controversial pension reform by setting a, quote, pivotal retirement age of 62, after which basically pensioners would receive a form of bonus on their retirement. In terms of financing, the National Rally has previously said it would close tax advantages for large shipping firms, boost levies on the profits of energy companies, and reduce France's contribution to the EU budget. The far-right also believes that cracking down on immigration will result on a number of savings on state expenses, a belief that doesn't take into account the contributions to the economy made by immigration, for example, solving labor shortages.
Let's move on then to the New Popular Front. That's the left and far left coalition that's banded together in recent weeks. What is Manuel Bompard's contribution to the debate?
Bompard was under attack for large parts of the discussions, with Jordan Bardella saying he was seeking a Cuban-style economic model for France. So let's take a look at what's actually planned here. Bompard reiterated the New Popular Front's willingness to scrap Macron's pension reform and to work towards bringing back retirement to the age of 60 years old. In terms of purchasing power, the movement is advocating for a freeze on basic necessity goods and raising the minimum wage to 1,600 euros after tax. In general, the coalition has presented a plan that would include 150 billion euros in annual spending by 2027, which would be paid for, according to their manifesto, by increases in taxes, especially on higher incomes, those over 4,000 euros a month after tax. That's what Bompard sort of fleshed out in the discussions on Tuesday night.
So finally, what about Macron's ruling coalition? Its Prime Minister Gabriel Attal. What points did he try to make?
Well, as the party in power, he really played the part of the responsible stakeholder, the one with experience in running things, even though he hasn't actually been in this position that long. He said his opponents kept promising the moon, but would end up destroying jobs because of their lack of fiscal discipline. He was attacked, though, for France's current fiscal situation, with both its debt and deficit largely exceeding EU targets. He defended Macron's record, including the pension reform, which raised the retirement age to 64, saying it was the only way to keep the French pension model afloat. And similarly to Bardella, he pledged not to raise taxes to defend purchasing power, and is running on a promise to increase the so-called Macron tax-free bonuses that companies can give some of their employees, reaching up to 10,000 euros a year, a measure that was first applied after the Yellow Vest protests in 2018. He also assured that electricity bills would be 15% lower next winter, and that pensions would be indexed on inflation. The real question here, though, considering none of these three parties or movements are actually slated to hold a majority in Parliament, actually implementing these proposals will become a real test of maneuvering parliamentary politics.
Yeah, we shall see if any of it really comes to fruition. Of course, the campaign is continuing generally as well. Aside from that debate, we're going to focus now on the National Rally's plans for the environment.
And there is a fear that if the far right come to power in France, commitments to further reduce carbon emissions could go the opposite way. The National Rally plans to halt the production of many wind and solar power projects in efforts to appeal to voters in concerns about spiraling living costs. But as countries around the world have set renewable energy targets, green energy and the economy have really become increasingly interlinked, creating jobs and often lowering consumer expenses. Eliza Herbert takes a look at what the far-right National Rally's planned energy policies could mean for France's economy.
France's plans to move away from fossil fuels could be at risk if a National Rally government is elected in the fast-approaching legislative elections. The Populist Party has pledged to roll back components of the European Union's Green Deal, threatening the renewable industry, turbine makers and car battery manufacturers, and many businesses that currently receive subsidies, in a bid to appeal to voters' pockets.
Heating and transport are becoming luxuries. I want to take into account the urgency of purchasing power.
The party has pledged to cut the VAT tax on gasoline, natural gas, heating, fuel and electricity, the cost of which would be an estimated €14 billion, part of which it says would be funded by a tax on windfall profits for power producers and lower subsidies for renewables, such as wind power and solar farm projects, which it would halt the development of and end support for. In place, it plans to build 20 new nuclear reactors by 2045 and back other energy forms like hydropower and biogas. The party's proposals have already had consequences for France's market as investors immediately began selling off energy stocks. France is currently experiencing one of the worst budget deficits in Europe, and the country's finance minister warned the National Rally Party policies will only raise borrowing costs for businesses and households and worsen the economy. And it appears many investors agree with him in the days following President Emmanuel Macron's announcement of a snap election, with the National Rally Party ahead in the polls. France's stock market fell to its lowest level in 2 years.
Eliza Herbert there with the end of the business from Charles. Thanks very much.